Big Value, Big Business Podcast, episode 006.
Welcome to the Big Value, Big Business Podcast with James Lynch, where we talk with today's most successful marketing minds about getting the right message in front of the right people and getting the right people to become your customers for life. And now, your host, James Lynch.
Welcome back, my friends, to yet another edition of the Big Value, Big Business Podcast. I am your host, James Lynch. I hope you're feeling fantastic today. I am really big time super excited about our very special guest today. He's considered by many to be the Godfather of Content Marketing. His name is Mr. Joe Pulizzi. Joe is the founder of ContentMarketingInstitute.com. Joe is an entrepreneur, a coach, a prolific speaker, and an evangelist for content marketing. He is also an accomplished author. He has 3 books in circulation, and his latest book, which is a huge success, is appropriately titled Epic Content Marketing. Epic Content Marketing has reached the #1 best-selling status on Amazon.com, and he has been, or his book has been, tapped by Fortune magazine as one of the 5 must-read business books of 2013. And I almost forgot, Joe is just a really nice guy and a lot of fun to chat with. So sit back, have a cup of coffee, and have a listen. I want to welcome my very special guest today from the ContentMarketingInstitute.com, Mr. Joe Pulizzi. Hello, Joe. How are you doing today, sir?
James, I'm fantastic. It's wonderful to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm so grateful to have the privilege to chat with you today, and I'm extremely excited for you to share with our listeners the deepest depths of your expertise and experience in the world of content marketing.
You're setting the expectations pretty high there, James. I would lower them a little bit.
No way, man. No way. I'm holding your feet to the fire.
All right, let's do it.
So listen, before we jump in, I wanted to take a second and congratulate you on the huge success that you're having with your latest book, the so apropos titled Epic Content Marketing. You've reached the #1 bestseller status on Amazon, and you've been tapped by Fortune magazine as one of the 5 must-read business books in 2013. Sir, that is awesome.
Thank you, sir. It's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day about the Fortune thing, and I said, it's hard for me to believe that the Fortune editor only read 5 books. And I happened to get mine into the post. I'm thrilled. I'm happy the book's doing well. I mean, that was my goal. It's the 3rd book I've written, first one solo, and just wanted to create something that was of ultimate value, and I'm just glad that it's out there.
Awesome. Yeah, in my humble opinion, it's the MBA textbook for blogging, the blogging and content industry. My personal copy, and I think I hit you up with this on Twitter. Mine is worn, dog-eared, highlighted, and underlined. It's getting used. Let's put it that way.
Well, thank you, sir. I mean, it's just, and because we cover the history of it. I mean, I've been in this industry for so long. People think the content marketing industry is new, and I mean, it's been going on for hundreds of years. I've been in the industry for over 15 now. I actually had hair at the time when I started in this industry, and so it was important for me to kind of tell the full story, not only about how you can use it to grow your business or agency or whatever perspective you're coming from, but just for the fact that this is a progressing discipline, and we have a ways to go.
I'm so excited that it's at the front now, because it really speaks to my audience, my mission about just providing value. I mean, you say the word value with every twist and turn that you make when you mention content marketing, and I love that. So let's dive in. I want to get a little history. Can you please just tell us a little bit about who Joe Pulizzi is, where you came from, and a little bit about your journey that brought you here to where you are today?
Well, I started probably most relevant to content marketing. I started in the industry at a company called Penton Media in 2000. Penton is the largest, at least today, the largest independent business publisher in North America. And I actually started working as an account manager in Penton Custom Media, which meant that if people didn't want to spend their money on advertising in our, I think we had 46 different media brands at the time, they went and the sales rep said, hey, I can't sell advertising to this guy. Maybe you could do something with him. Send him over to us at Custom Media, and we started selling them things like webinar programs, custom magazine programs, custom newsletter programs. Then we got into things like blogging and social media stuff when I left there in 2007. But that was sort of my indoctrination into custom media, custom publishing, branded content, content marketing, whatever you want to call it. I started running the group from 2001 and left in 2007 to start what is now the Content Marketing Institute. But I really, as I started to sell this thing to chief marketing officers in 2001, 2002, I used all the different terms. I used branded content, I used custom media, I used custom publishing. But the one that really got them to sit up in their chair was when I mentioned content marketing, because they said, oh, I'm a marketer. Marketing, content, I get it. You have to, we're sort of a paint by numbers crowd, us marketers. So you have to be very, very simple about the concept. And they started to get that and say, oh yeah, I can market through content. And of course, content back then was very salesy, and it wasn't what we know right now is the truly helpful, inspirational type of content we're talking about to move the customer. But I really did feel at that time that we were on to something big, and lo and behold, I started pushing out this term content marketing in 2007, and it really started to take shape in 2009. A lot of thought leaders like Jay Baer and Brian Clark got behind the term and really started to push it. And it seems to me, you tell me, it seems to be sort of the de facto term for our little industry right now. And I've written a couple books, spoke around the world on content marketing, and just having a good time, evangelizing the practice of content marketing. And my whole goal is to get people to realize that they don't have to, by the way, I'm not an advertising hater. I believe in advertising. We advertise. But the whole goal is that brands out there don't have to feel like they're forced into interruption marketing. They actually can create their own content. They actually can be informational experts, position themselves that way, and communicate directly with customers if they wish to do so.
Well said. Well said. And I totally agree in that. And I appreciate the history. I heard that you quite possibly could have coined that phrase, content marketing, and that may be why you're considered by some to be the Godfather of content marketing. What's validity there?
I don't know. There's no, we don't have absolute proof on that.
Okay.
I probably was one of the earliest ones using it. I started using the term in 2001. David Meerman Scott, actually started, I think he used content marketing in one of his books, Cashing In with Content, in 2005. So we go back and forth on that. But, it's probably fair to say that I was one of the earliest using that term.
All right. I appreciate it. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's all good. I wish there was proof of it, because it'd make my life a lot easier.
Well, we'll see who makes it into the Urban Dictionary. How's that?
There you go. Yeah.
Awesome. So listen, not to cast a light on the darker days, but how about the challenges early on in the career? I seem to remember right before this, the Content Marketing Institute took off, that you faced some challenges and you were considering packing it in. Could you tell us about that?
Oh boy, yeah, I think I talked about that on another podcast you must have been listening about. I don't usually tell too many people, but let's bring that out. So content marketing, so went out with a product called Junta 42 in 2007, and it was basically the eHarmony for content marketing. And it actually did fairly well. We matched up over 1,000 projects, and it was the idea that if you were a brand and you wanted to find somebody to help you with your content marketing, either create a video or writing or whatever, we would match you up with an agency or a freelance writer that would help you do that and get your project done. So we matched up all these projects. It was really, really good. The problem is that our customer base, our paying customer base, was not the brands, it was the agencies. And as you know, the agencies are the cheapest people on the planet. They don't pay for anything. And so we were targeting, but of course, hindsight is 2020. We targeted people. Our financial model was based on agency spending money. And the darkest day that I probably had was we had our best day, best week, I guess, ever in the service, where we actually matched up a multi-million-dollar project. And the customer that got the project, the agency that got the project, I was like, oh, this is a shoo-in. They're definitely going to re-up because I've just given them $1 million project, content marketing project. Went and talked to the woman running that agency, and she said, no, we're not going to re-up in the system. We're going to spend our $5,000 elsewhere. And I basically said, I can't give you better ROI on $5,000 than $1 million. I can't do it. And I basically had, what I would call a come to Jesus moment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not gonna work, because our business model is flawed. My best example, of a customer is not gonna to come through and spend money with us. And, after feeling sorry for myself for a while and putting, 2.5 years behind it, I said, okay, well, we're gonna change the business model. So over the next 3 months, basically, change the entire model from focusing on agencies to focusing completely on training and education for brands and brand marketers. And then we, decided basically almost at that moment, we said, look, we're going to launch the largest content marketing event on the planet. We're going to launch the leading magazine on the planet, and we're going to launch the #1 resource on the planet for content marketing education, and Content Marketing Institute was born. So that really, about the end of 2010 was when we really knew we had something. But before then, James, I didn't know if we were going to be able to make it or not. So it really took about 3 to 3.5 years of the startup and pivoting that one time before we actually knew we had something.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you shared that with us. So you would consider that your big breakthrough moment, and you've given us a little insight on what that felt like. But could you just elaborate a little more when you realized there was no turning back? My friend and I always have this, it's an entrepreneurial thing between us. It's plan A would be the entrepreneurial, doing what you want, finding your passion and going for it. Plan B is going back to the cubicle, back to corporate.
Yep.
We called no turning back. We said no plan B. So when did you realize that there was no plan B and it was full steam ahead?
Well, it's funny. I mean, it all happened in basically one day. I went through, of course, you have to be manic depressive to be an entrepreneur anyways. So, I remember I was outside in my backyard feeling sorry for myself, thinking I just wasted the last 2 years because this startup that we have is not going to make it. And I'm broke at this point. You do, if you're an entrepreneur for as long as I was, so let's say that was about almost exactly 2.5 years into the business, I'm broke. I can't go back and work for somebody else. I can never work for somebody else again. I'm not built that way, because you're calling your own shots. You're working on your own timetable. You're not really good at working with other people telling you what to do anymore. And I really felt sad. It's probably the best way to talk about it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually have to go back and work for somebody. And then I really did think, James, I've got to give it another shot. So I put that plan B to rest for a while and said, look, I'm going to give this. Luckily, we'd had a little bit more money. We were running red for, a couple of years, but I had enough saved up, because I saved up for 6 to 7 years to do this thing. So the lucky thing is we were able to make that go forward. And I decided, look, I'm not going to go back, and I'm going to stick with this thing a little bit longer. And then I knew that especially once Content Marketing Institute started to it really got traction quickly, for all the reasons that we're probably talking about it, and we were able to make this thing go. That's a Phoenix Rising story. That's awesome. I told you a little bit about my podcast before we came on the air, and big value, big business, providing big value. Can you correlate your success or things turning around in the creation and success of the Content Marketing Institute? Can you correlate that to the value that you were providing? Did you have some kind of value epiphany? And what is your current value proposition to this day for the company? It's funny, when I started, the company started, so what is now Content Marketing Institute started on April 2nd of 2007, and April 26th was my first blog post. It was actually called Why Content Marketing, it was kind of interesting because we put everything behind that term. Now, from that moment on, I just had this belief that if we gave away all the knowledge that I have and what the team has on a daily basis, and we gave as much away as possible, we'd get rewarded with loyalty. and a customer base and a subscriber base. And we were absolutely right about that. And it's sort of the basis for content marketing, right, James? I mean, that's the whole thing that we believe, that if we give enough knowledge away and we are so incredibly helpful to our audience, they will reward us and buy our products and services. And that's exactly what happens. So every day, if we're not giving away as much as we possibly can and showing them more value than anyone else is showing in content marketing, then we're going to be fine. And I think the difference is that when most companies, at least the companies that I've worked at, they want to hide that, right? They want to say, oh, that's our IP. We don't want to give that away. People need to pay for that. We need to lock that behind a gate. We need to do it. You know, they're scared to give that away. Well, you know what? If you don't give it away, your competitor's going to give it away. Somebody else is going to give it away. And I believe that, I mean, everyone can duplicate anything else that you have. They can duplicate your products, your services. They can't necessarily duplicate your communication. I mean, Don Schultz, the father of integrated marketing, I totally am a believer of what he said. He always focused on, that's the one area you can differentiate yourself, is how you communicate. So that's where we have a competitive advantage. And if you give away all that knowledge, and if you can understand how to monetize that into selling more products and services, that's where I think that's where the key to making this whole thing happen. So I would just, and we're just of the mentality that if we give away as much value, as much information as possible, it's going to make all the difference in the world for our business model.
Yeah, it's so good to hear, Joe, that there's a difference between content and content marketing. And content marketing it's almost not even marketing. It's like content giveaway. It's value giveaway. We call it marketing only because it brings people closer to us and our brand and our products and services. But we're actually giving stuff away. And I like that, revealing the secret sauce.
Well, I think the key is that, I mean, the difference between content and content marketing is content is all the stuff that you have that's not making an impact or changing any behavior in your customers or prospects. Content marketing, the reason why we call it marketing is because we have to see a behavior change of some kind. So that's how you actually see, I mean, most of the impact, if you really measure all the way through the funnel, I think most of the impact will be made on the stuff that's really inherently valuable, that really amazing content that you're given. All the stuff that we have that's not doing much is usually that product or service content. I mean, when we go into companies and we do a content audit of their material, 90% of the content they have is all product or service related. And the challenge is that only at about 2 or 3% of the buying cycle, they care about that kind of information. So we have 90% of all this content for just a very small portion of the buying cycle, and the other parts of the buying cycle, whether that's before the purchase or after the purchase, customer retention or loyalty, or building, loyal subscribers to my brand, we don't have a lot of content, or at least a lot of the content in story form for that. So that's why we're trying to work with a lot of companies and teach obviously a lot of our readers on the fact that, look, your customers, your prospects, they're looking for all this information, and shouldn't it make sense for you to be found when they're looking for all this information, either before or after the sale? Or I mean, I think, by the way, customer retention and loyalty initiatives, that's my favorite kind of content marketing. You already have a defined audience of people that know you. Why aren't you delivering ongoing solutions to them to help make their experience better around your products and services and give them better insight? And I'll give you a really good example. Our HVAC, one of our HVAC companies in this area, it got really cold here in Cleveland, Ohio. Today as we tape this, it's -9, I think, is the temperature right now. And last night, they were sending some very helpful tips on how to stay warm and the things you need to do around your HVAC system, and making sure that the water doesn't freeze up, water pipes don't freeze up on you, and those types of things. That's incredibly valuable information, and also very much real-time marketing as well. So it's those types of things that I think are critical, and I think the best kind of marketing is that marketing that is really going to help somebody with their jobs or their lives, or make something better at the end of the day.
Perfect. And that's a perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you next, because dealing with big brands, and you can have this contrived and manufactured, you can manufacture content. They could hire anyone to do it. But talking about the smaller person, the HVAC guy, obviously he's paying attention to what you're telling him, because he's communicating these types of things, this timely information that's so helpful. 2 questions. How is he delivering that? And on an ongoing basis, what type of value-added content, in a general sense, what type of value-added content is he delivering out there to keep his existing customers happy and to attract new customers?
Well, in that particular situation, that was a very, more spontaneous type of communication that was delivered through email. That's a customer relationship, so he has my email, so there's that connection already. But what was interesting about it is that the content was already created. The content was actually linked to a number of blog posts that were already created, because ongoing, and that's why if you look at the pure definition of content marketing, it says it needs to be consistent. On a consistent basis, it's not a campaign. If you look at the way most big brands and most big agencies look at content marketing, they look at it as a content marketing campaign. And content marketing and campaign don't go well with each other. Because when you say campaign, you say that you're inherently saying that it has a stop date. Just like a political campaign stops at some point. Content marketing campaign stops at some point, and that's why I think most brands fail. Where this one works really well is this is an ongoing blog series. In this case, they blog twice a week. I think it's on Tuesdays and every Tuesday and Thursday. And we're building up a connection and a trust, and we have a promise of content we're delivering to our customers. So that's what I would say for everyone listening to this. If you're going to start a content marketing program, you have to commit to consistency. Just like the best media brands of all time, whether you're looking at the New York Times, whether you're looking at ESPN, Wall Street Journal, whatever the case is, they consistently deliver every day, every week, every month, every quarter, whatever the timetable is. So if we want our content marketing to be successful and we actually want to build a relationship with customers long term, we have to do it consistently, or why should they even anticipate our content in the first place? Are we just going to send it out when we want to? Are we just going to send it out when the need arises for us or we need more leads? God, I hope not. What we really need to focus on is what are their informational pain points? What are their needs? What are their interests? How can we deliver on those on an ongoing basis to create that long-term relationship and to create that trust? So I guess to answer your question, it's kind of a long answer to your question. The most important thing, and if you said, James, if you said, Joe, why do most content marketing programs fail? I would say because they stop. So we've got to be more patient with our content marketing.
Now we know why you wrote the book.
Well, a lot of people say that. A lot of people say that, a lot of people say that, so I'm not. But that's the one thing, like when I do presentations, James, and I get out in front of them, I always go through the definition and the parts of what, my definition of content marketing, and I spend the most time on the word consistent because that's where it breaks down for the most part.
I so appreciate that. And I wish I had an hour and a half. I wish you had an hour and a half because this is priceless. But I'm going to keep it going because you've got a schedule to keep. Talking about getting back to you personally, Joe, on a personal note, do you have any particular habits or rituals? You sound like a really together guy. Just habits or rituals for productivity, accountability, for consistency that you use on a daily basis to keep you moving towards your personal and business goals?
Oh, on a personal basis, I've been really working hard on keeping a journal. And part of that, and I've been using Evernote to do that. And I listened to a podcast from Michael Hyatt, who's author of a great book called Platform. And I've been taking kind of his advice and trying to keep the journal. And as part of that, setting goals on a daily basis. And what I'm trying to do, and I struggle with it just like everyone else is, but I'd like to get, 2 or 3 things done a day that are going to continue to move either myself, my personal goals, or my business objectives forward. So there's a couple things as part of that. So how do I choose what those things are that I want to get done on a daily basis? I put that in the journal and I also write it down. So I know, and I'm sort of double checking myself to make sure I've got it in 2 places. And these are the things. My day is not complete unless I get these 2 things done. If you look at, and I just read this thing from Jerry Seinfeld the other day, and he always talked about don't break the chain. If you're going to become a good comedic writer, you've got to make sure that every day you are writing, and you put a big X over that day, and then as you do an X day, and the next day, and the next day, you actually create a chain. And you want to make sure you don't break the chain. It's the same thing with setting, whether you're doing a journal or setting these goals. So I try to make sure I don't break that chain. And then as part of that, those things, those small things go back into I don't even have it in front of me. It's actually downstairs because I was looking at it this morning. But I've got a print journal. It's a moleskin journal, and I've got my personal goals, my business goals, my philanthropic goals, and my spiritual goals all written down. I know there's 4 or 5 for each of those. Oh, by the way, family goals as well. So those are the 5 things, and I've got those down there, and that's where my little things I do every day roll up into those big things. Those are things I can't complete today. Those are things that are going to take some time to get going. But I know that it's just like setting a content marketing plan. It's the same thing. I've got overall objectives, and I've got little things I need to do on a daily basis to get and accomplish those overall objectives. So I don't know if that's any insight to helping anyone else, but I try to really write those down, those small things on a daily basis that move up into the big things. Those big things actually changed my life, James. Having those things down, when I talked about the personal goals and the family goals, and knowing what those are, because at least in my contact with most businesses, with most people and most entrepreneurs, they don't have that. And I think actually writing those down and referring to those, and I would refer to them on almost a daily basis, so you can remind yourself why you're living on this planet. And so I think that's it's really important for me to move forward on a daily basis by doing that.
Fantastic. And it validates everything that I know I should be doing, and I know our listeners will, even if they've heard it before. It's just hammers. I mean, this is a successful guy that is getting it done. And it's kind of like the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? It's like one bite at a time.
There you go. Absolutely. Great point.
You touched on Michael Hyatt, who I do listen to and try to visit his blog, and I follow him on Twitter. Any other mastermind groups you belong to, or podcasts or blogs you subscribe to, or have favorite authors that you touch on a consistent basis?
Well, in the industry, there's a few people that I follow. Like, I love Ann Handley's writing in the industry. She's author of Content Rules with CC Chapman. She's fantastic. From a marketing standpoint, I love Seth Godin. You know what I love about Seth is just the fact that I can read it in 2 seconds and I get something out of it. It's just a thought, right? I mean, I know what he's trying to do. He has a different style, but what I also love about it is the fact there is the textbook offering of consistency when you look at Seth Godin. I think he's blogged every day since like 2001. I'm inspired by that myself as I look at that. I read everything on our own site. I mean, what's great about how we've evolved the content process for Content Marketing Institute, I used to be the sole blogger, and now I blog once a week on the site, and I get 6 other examples to read every week from smarter people, for the most part, smarter people than me, focusing on their expert. And that's how I really learn, is by our own content that we have on the site. What else do I look at? I mean, that's for the most part. I mean, there's some really, really smart people out there doing some great work. Robert Rose, by the way, Robert Rose is our chief strategist. We do a podcast called PNR, This Old Marketing. We just did our 8th episode, and I learned from Robert. Robert's take is so different because Robert comes from Hollywood. I come from publishing. He comes from the Hollywood side, and we both look at content marketing in a different way. So I love to look at that. He's an entrepreneur as well. And just from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I've got a little group of mentors that I reach out about, 3 or 4 people, advisors, I would say. It's not a formal advisorship, but I reach out to them on a regular basis for advice and input in either email or phone call. I think that anybody, whether you're a marketer or whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever the case is, you need to have that mentorship. When I first started, James, I didn't have that. And now that I have those people that I can rely on, it's so critical. These are people that have been through it. They've done what I've done, and I can reach back to them, and I'm trying not, they'll tell me, here's the mistakes I made, don't do this. I mean, they've already done it. Well, I don't need to do that anymore and go through that, although I could make a case for making mistakes is really important, but I won't go through that. That's a whole different podcast. But I would say that getting your 4 or 5 or even 3 mentors on a regular basis that you can go to it for advice is critical for not only a formation as an entrepreneur, but just as a human being.
So great. Ann Handley, Seth Godin, and you've got to grab yourself some mentors.
It's all good, man. I like it.
Yeah, I wanted to start to wrap things up because I know your schedule is tight today. Okay. Could you tell me about any projects or events that you've got going on that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I used to do a lot of jobs for the business for Content Marketing Institute. Now my main job is programming. So I program all the content for our major events. So we've got Content Marketing World Sydney coming up 31st of March in Sydney, Australia. We've got the big show, Content Marketing World 2014, which I'm programming. Yesterday was a big day. I was programming that all yesterday. We have over 100 speakers for that event, and it's not easy at all programming that. It's a big challenge for me. Sometimes I just sit and look at the board. I have a whole system where I lay out all the tracks with Post-it notes from a speaker standpoint and a content topic standpoint, and it is probably the hardest thing I do, but the most rewarding thing I do from that standpoint. We just launched the podcast with Robert Rose, as I was talking about it, having a good time with that. That goes out every Saturday on the Content Marketing Institute blog. And then our big thing we're working on in this organization is we're working on online training and development for content marketing that we will probably launch in the next 2 months on contentmarketinginstitute.com. It's been a labor of love for the entire staff. It has not been easy to do, but we're really excited that that'll come out because we have got about 30% of our audience is international, and we don't really have anything to offer them because if you're in India, it's hard to get to Content Marketing World in Cleveland every year, or even into Sydney, Australia. So, and we're not going to do events in every country. So trying to get that training off the ground is really important.
Fantastic. Did you want to leave us with anything else?
Oh, I guess the thing is if you're an agency, here's what I would say. Because I know you have an audience of agencies and brand marketers. So I would first give this out to agencies, and please stop using the word campaign in your terminology to your clients, because it gives them the idea that it's a short-term, content marketing is a short-term effort. The thing I would say to brand marketers is if you're having trouble with buy-in, really look at a pilot program. 6-month pilot, get agreed upon objectives in your organization around what you're trying to do, because people ask me all the time, James, how can I be more effective with content marketing? And I ask them, well, what are you trying to do? What pain are you trying to solve with your content marketing? It's not just, you can't just say, oh, I need content marketing. I don't know for what. I don't know what your problem is. I don't know where the opportunities lie. So the first thing is if you do a pilot, we want to figure out what the overall objective is that's going to help the business. And then we can get those agreed upon objectives in the organization, and you could set some KPIs and some measurements against those that are agreed upon. And then it's almost like hitting a single. A lot of us say, oh, I want to do content marketing. Let's hit a home run. Well, don't do that. Just hit your single. Then once you get your buy-in in the organization and you've accomplished some of the objectives in your pilot, then you can go hit a double, a triple, and then you can hit a home run. Content marketing is about a whole lot of singles. You don't hit a lot of home runs with it, but those singles add up to a lot of runs. So that's where I like to look at it. So I would just say be patient, look at the pilot, and then for you agencies, I don't want to hear you say campaign anymore.
The word campaign with a big red line through it.
There you go, my friend. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you draw a parallel to content marketing just like you do working on goals. Little steps lead to big destinations.
And every day, absolutely. Work the program every day. And that's why a lot of people fail with content marketing, is because it's harder than advertising. Advertising is a lot easier than doing a consistent content marketing program, which is why a lot of people give up. So stick with it. Keep the faith.
Sounds good, Joe. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, sir, and we will talk to you very, 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 very soon.
Thank you, James. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Take care. All right. I hope you enjoyed our chat today with Mr. Joe Pulizzi. Please visit Joe at contentmarketinginstitute.com for some truly fantastic resources and to see what Joe has cooking in the way of special events. He does host the biggest content marketing in-person event in the world. Check him out. Here you can also find the show notes and the highlights of this interview at bigvaluebigbusiness.com/episode 006. Or just go to bigvaluebigbusiness.com and type Joe into the search box for easy access. Hey, and while you're visiting bigvaluebigbusiness.com, please take a second and leave a comment, either about this interview, about the podcast overall, or tell me what you would like to hear us talk about. Any questions or challenges you may have with your business, I'd love to be able to find the expert that would have the answer for you and have them on the podcast. So talk to me at bigvaluebigbusiness.com. And as always, I really hope we've brought some big value into your day. You take care, and I'll be talking to you real soon.
Thanks for listening to the Big Value Big Business Podcast at www.bigvaluebigbusiness.com.